Okay, so what if I told you that some of the most important clues to understanding the autistic brain weren't hidden deep inside the skull, but were actually written plain as day right on the face? Today, we're diving into a fascinating and profound link in autism research that starts long, long before we're even born. I know, it's a pretty provocative question, right? But it's exactly this question that's leading scientists to a much deeper understanding of neurodevelopment and, the incredible complexity of what we call autism spectrum disorder. Now, let's be absolutely clear. This is not about judging a book by its cover, not at all. It's about learning to read a biological story, a story that gets written into the very architecture of the face during the first, most crucial moments of life. So let's start with the big puzzle itself. Autism spectrum disorder is famously, well, a spectrum. It shows up in so many different ways in different people, and that makes trying to understand its biological roots a massive challenge for researchers and doctors. So how on earth are the face and the brain connected? Well, it turns out their bond is forged way back in the earliest days of embryonic development, where both of these structures are built from the exact same blueprint. The key thing to see here is the timing. Check out that critical window between weeks 4 and 8. The face and the forebrain are literally being built at the exact same time from the same batch of materials. You could almost think of them as developmental twins. And here are the architects doing all the work: cranial neural crest cells. These guys are basically the master builders of the embryo. They're this amazing group of cells that travel out to form the scaffolding of the face, but, and this is the important part, they also help build critical parts of the central nervous system. So here's the kicker. If there's any kind of disruption, maybe it's genetic, maybe it's environmental, during that super brief, super critical window of development, well, it doesn't just affect one thing. It has the potential to leave a subtle but totally measurable mark on both the brain's wiring and the face's final proportions. All right, so that's the theory. But how does this actually work in practice? How do scientists go about measuring these tiny little differences to find a real, consistent pattern? Well, this is definitely not guesswork. We've moved way beyond old school tools like calipers. Researchers now use this incredible high-tech 3D imaging called stereophotogrammetry. It can map thousands and thousands of points on the face with an accuracy that is just mind-blowing. We're talking less than a millimeter. And so after decades of research using these super precise tools, a kind of general facial signature started to emerge. It's a collection of subtle but statistically real traits that are often found in people with ASD, like a slightly broader upper face or a shorter midface. And it gets even deeper than just identification. It turns out that certain measurements, like say the distance between the eyes, don't just point to a group. They actually correlate with how severe a person's autism symptoms are. But the real breakthrough, the big aha moment, came when researchers took a step back. They stopped looking at everyone with ASD as one big single group and just let the data speak for itself. And you know what? The data was screaming. It wasn't just one broad, continuous spectrum. The facial measurements were clearly pointing to two distinct, biologically different subgroups hiding within the larger autism population. And you can see the differences are pretty clear. Subgroup 1, for example, tends to have a shorter facial midline, while subgroup 2 has that broader upper face. These two groups have measurably different facial structures, and those structures are basically acting as a physical map for their very different neurodevelopmental journeys. And when you look at the clinical side of things, wow, the differences are just staggering. Subgroup 1 has a much lower average nonverbal IQ and a way higher risk for major developmental challenges. Just look at language regression. That's where a child loses speech they once had. The risk is 58% in subgroup 1, but only 20% in subgroup 2. These are not just different faces. We're looking at completely different clinical realities. This is what the researchers themselves are saying. This discovery is powerful evidence that we can, and probably should, start defining our diagnostics based on biology, not just on behavior. It's a potential game changer for sure. So this is all fascinating science, right? But why does this matter? What does it all mean for the future of how we diagnose and treat autism? Well, get this. We even have a genetic smoking gun that proves the whole principle. There's this master regulator gene called CHD8. We know that mutations in this gene cause a specific subtype of autism. And guess what else they cause? a very distinct set of facial features, like a broad forehead and wide-set eyes. It's the perfect direct link: gene, face, brain, all tied together. The practical implications here are just enormous. You can imagine non-invasive facial analysis to screen at-risk infants. You can imagine creating much more powerful clinical trials because you're grouping people who are biologically similar. And the ultimate goal? Truly personalized therapies that are tailored to a child's specific biological profile.
So, the huge takeaway, the whole point, is to shift our thinking. The goal is to move away from using one single catch-all autism label and move toward a much more precise, more nuanced, biology-first way of understanding these conditions.
Which really just leaves us with a powerful final thought. To think that what started as a scientific curiosity, this subtle link between the face and the brain, could actually be the key that unlocks a future of more precise, more effective, and ultimately more compassionate support for every single person on the autism spectrum.